I have not seen a trailer for a movie in a long time that straight up 100% unabashedly lies to its audience the way the Thoroughbreds trailer does. Hello everyone, Riley here, and I just saw Thoroughbreds. It's written and directed by Corey Finley, and it stars Olivia, Cooke, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Anton Yelchin in his final performance. Thoroughbreds is a sadistic comedy about two high school girls who had a falling apart earlier in their lives, who kind of come together and relate in a hatred for one of their, played by Anya Taylor-Joy's stepdad, and they start planning his murder. And that's where Anton Yelchin comes in. So after I give my quick thoughts on this movie, I will be talking and ranting about the trailer, so make sure you stick till the end of the video. The crux of this movie that the entire thing boils down to is the relationship between Olivia, Cooke, and Anya Taylor-Joy, who are both really good in this movie. They have a sadistic, awkward relationship because Olivia Cooke's character apparently cannot feel any emotions and is very logical and calculating through pretty much everything she does, whereas Anya Taylor-Joy's character puts on a facade that she doesn't have any emotions, but cannot hide her feelings very well at all. This allows for a lot of connection yet disconnect between the two characters, which is really captivating to watch and really fills the heart of the movie throughout the entire thing. However, what I think is the best part of this movie by far is Anton Yelchin's performance, which is really disappointing that it had to be his last. But he is fantastic in this movie. He's odd, he's off-putting, he's completely crazy at points, but he's just captivating to watch, and you cannot take your eyes off of him anytime he's on screen. Even though his character is completely zany, he still does have humanity to him, and you get where he's coming from pretty much everything that he does, which just makes him all the more of a compelling character, and I wish that he was actually in the movie a lot more than he was. The dialogue, for the most part, is off-putting and slightly awkward, but it's realistic and still engaging and still pretty snappy. There's a lot of good witty banter between different people. There's a lot of good humor in it, surprisingly. There's a decent amount of good humor. And overall, the dialogue just felt really realistic in a kind of fantastical way. That kind of goes into the overall tone of the film overall. I felt like this had a very Victorian feel to it, even though it's in a modern American context. And by that, I meant that it had the grander-than-life feel and the overly prim and shiny veneer to things that kind of hid from the true meaning of what they actually were trying to pull across, which was great, because I haven't really seen a movie capture that essence in a modern American context before, and that was really engaging to watch. Also, the score's really good. It amplifies the humor, the tension, and overall just the overall atmosphere of the film. It works really well in creating that. However, there are a few things that are pretty rough in this movie. For example, the editing and the pace of this film. It is not great at all. If you've seen any of my other reviews, you know that I generally feel like movies are too long nowadays, and that they just kind of pad things into them that aren't necessary. This film is the exact opposite. There's not enough in this movie to really get the full weight of the emotional reaction, or to really understand the character motivations a lot of the times. For example, the entire crux of this film is based on Anya Taylor-Joy's hatred for her stepfather. And you don't really get that much, because he has three main scenes in the movie, and you feel completely different about him at each of those major points. For one of them, you feel like, yeah, he's kind of just a little bit of a jerk, but he's just an overall okay person, to he's a terrible person, to I kind of feel bad for him. So it's not very consistent, and you don't really end up understanding the motivation truly for why they actually want to kill him. Another thing, since the two main characters don't show a whole lot of emotion, there isn't a whole lot of emotional weight when certain scenes end up happening. While, yes, there is emotional weight between their relationship, I feel like overall you could have had a few more character building scenes throughout so that you could have actually understood the mindsets more of these characters, so that when certain things happen later on in the film, they have more of an impact because you understand it more. Also, the beginning really drags. There are a lot of long shots setting up the scene, and like one or two of them comes up later on in the film, but you didn't really pick up on them because they didn't seem important at the beginning. So when it comes to the end, you don't really have the full circle feel that they were going for. So it just doesn't really work on that level. Also, Amanda, who's played by Olivia Cooke, is supposed to not have emotions throughout the film, which is kind of a cool aspect that they play on, but they're not quite consistent with it. And there are times when she starts showing reactions to things that you feel like they should be emotionally based and not just on logic and on reasoning. Like, they seem emotional, but they're not playing into them, and it's kind of unclear if they're trying to show that she's gaining emotions throughout it or if she's not. So it just doesn't come across that well. Also, the end of the movie isn't great. While the general storyline getting up to the end, I was really engaged in, the end doesn't quite work because they kind of have a tongue-in-cheek thing about certain tropes that they have. It's pretty tongue-in-cheek throughout the entire movie, by the way. But the end, there's a tongue-in-cheek portion that they end up reverting into. So it ends up undermining all of the effects that they were going for. And I get that what they were going for in it, it just did not work. Because they were trying to subvert the genre in multiple ways, and it ended up just falling into feeling like lazy screenwriting. But overall, the general feeling and the general characters of the movie I thought were pretty engaging throughout. So I say this is definitely a worthwhile watch, and I would give Thoroughbreds a 7.2 out of 10. Now, the trailer. While I really liked watching the trailer and it got me excited for the movie, once I actually saw the movie, it did more damage than good. First of all, it did what a lot of other movies do, and it spoiled so much of the third act of the film. Whereas, there were scenes in it that showed where characters were going, so you were like, oh, this person's gonna come in here, or oh, that's how they get out of it while you're watching the movie because you saw certain shots in the trailer. Also, a lot of the jokes and witty lines are in the trailer, but they don't play as well in the trailer as they do in the movie, so I feel like they just don't have as much impact as they would have wanted them to have once you actually see the film. Also, they just 100% lied to you in it. The main focus of the trailer is, this is Amanda, she feels nothing. This is Lily, she feels everything. That's just flat out false! Lily has very little emotions that she shows throughout this entire film. She tries to suppress her emotions almost at every given turn, and it made it feel very off-putting when I was expecting her to be overly emotional throughout the film going into it, and she had basically no emotions for the majority of the movie. And while it was a good marketing technique as to juxtaposing them two, it just came across as confusing once you actually saw the movie. So that was my review. If you liked the video, drop a like down below, comment what you thought on the movie, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.